Hey guys, another great episode of the Every Arkansan podcast coming to you from Colorado. Sorry about the wind and the blurriness. That's what happens when you let me run the equipment. My friend Mel is an amazing man, a man who Satan tried to stop. He actually served a lot of years in prison. And this was a guy that you could either fall into that prison system and start to go downhill, or God can get a hold of you. And God got a hold of him. The Word of God changed his life. And when he got out of prison, he actually went to work with Prison Fellowship. And from there, thousands and thousands of men got set free because of the power of Jesus Christ. Thank you for doing this for me. It really means a lot.
Brother, this is like, man, thank you. I mean, this is amazing.
So, tell a little bit about your story, that pre-Jesus side of it, because I think it's really important for people to realize, man, God's capable of anything.
Yeah. Well, I was a young guy and living in a home of a lot of dysfunction. I think most homes have some degree of dysfunction in them, and I was a very lonely little boy. I was insecure. I was lonely. I was bored. I just struggled with life, trying to understand how to put it together. And for me, I identified with people that felt the same way. So I wasn't drawn, when I went to school, I was drawn to the guys outside the school, smoking pot, escaping, because I did not feel comfortable with Mel inside. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what my purpose was. I didn't know anything. I wasn't raised with some good structure around me. And I easily gravitated to drugs. And what the drugs did for me was I didn't feel insecure. Okay. I felt confident. I felt like, wow, I felt like I could be amongst people and not feel insecure anymore. And I think that's the pull of drugs. It seems to help you. It helps you manage life and do life better. But for me, then, what happens is, then you end up addicted. You end up that no longer are you managing it, but the addiction is managing you. And so I spiraled. I spiraled into heavy use of drugs. I spiraled into crime to pay for the drugs. That was started at age 15. By age 22, I was on my way to prison, just a lost man trying to figure out life. And but it was there in prison that I saw an inmate walking across the compound, and this was an old historic prison. And on the back of his jacket, he had written "Smile, Jesus is your friend." And I watched him go across that compound, and I'm sitting against the prison wall in my garb, and I'm looking at him, and I'm going, man, that guy's nuts. The culture of the prison is going to tear him apart. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't realize it at the time, but I got up and I go, I'm going to go talk to this guy. So I walked over and I stopped him before he was going in to be assigned his cell in the cell house. And I said, hey man, he stepped to the side and said, I've never seen genuine love in people. I've never experienced that. What's this Jesus crap all about? And he looked me in the eyes and he said, Jesus will give you peace and he'll give you joy in life. And in my spiritual darkness, I said to him, what a religious blankety blank nut. And I turned and I walked away and I went back and sat down against that prison wall in my spiritual darkness of loneliness and insecurity. But what was amazing was when I went back to my cell, I arrived before my cellies did, and I laid up on my bunk, and I couldn't get his words out of my mind. And I began to think and about how I was raised in my family, and could this Jesus be real? I began to ponder that, and that led me to go to the chaplain's office and get a Bible. And when I took that Bible back to the cell, my cellmates just became unglued. I mean, if I didn't believe in a spiritual presence, I did now. They were just like screaming and yelling, "Get that Bible out of here!" You would have thought I brought some cult object in there, some foreign god, and so they were just yelling at me and stuff, and so I moved. I put the Bible at the on my mattress up by my pillow, put my pillow over it, and that was against the bars, and there were cells next to me. And when they ran the cell doors and I stepped out, the guy in the cell next to mine saw my Bible and my pillow, reached through, picked it up, laid it on the floor. Inmates were there, and inmates were in front of me, and he set it on fire with a lighter. When I was in prison, you could smoke. Now, they've self-done away with that. And I figured looking 3 floors down, I was on the 3rd tier. I figured I better keep my mouth shut. And so I went back, got another Bible, took it in my cell, but put it on the opposite end of my bunk. And I remember I would have to read out loud. On this side of me was rock, on this side of me was soul music, down below was country western. There wasn't a whole lot of Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound flowing through the corridors of that prison. But I read the Bible, and I came in from my work call early. No one was in the cell. And for the first time that I can remember, I closed my eyes and I said, "God, if you're really there, I'm reading your word, and I'm trying to, I don't understand it, and my cellmates are really upset, and so, God, would you move me? Would you help me? Move me. Show me a sign." And I immediately opened my eyes, and from the drug addiction and all the stuff I had been through, the words came to my mind. Man, you're going crazy. Here you are standing in this cell, talking to a God that might not even exist, and so I sat down and I filled out a kite letter because I said I want a request to move, put it into the counselor slot. Normally you would hear back in 30 days. Some days it fell in the big hole. You never heard back. But to my amazement, 2 days later, I heard the officer running the doors, and I hear his keys clanging, and he's coming down, and he stops in front of my cell, and he says, "Mel Goebel, number 28138, roll it up." And immediately, man, I just felt this warmth and excitement. He heard my prayer 2 days before. I said, "If you're real, will you move me?" And I'm grabbing my stuff, and I'm all excited. I'm thinking, he's real. God is real. He heard my prayer. And I'm grabbing my stuff, and the officer looks at me and says, "I don't know what you're so excited about, Goebel. I'm just moving you over here to a dormitory, a different location." And I thought to myself, I says, "Man, this prayer stuff's good. I should have just asked God to take me home." So it's amazing how quickly we bring our selfishness into our prayer life. And then one day, it was March 16th, I remember the day vivid. In that dorm, sunlight peering through the windows, uh, I woke up and there was this powerful presence next to me. I would move. I went over to my sink, threw some water in my eyes, and it moved with me as I moved. And I felt a joy welling up in my heart. It was like a ticker tape going across my mind. Today is the day. Today is the day to give your heart to Jesus. And in the midst of that presence, in the midst of that overwhelming peace, I went down on my knees and I said, Jesus, forgive me for all my rebellion. I give you my heart today. Help me to live a life following you. And from that day on, I began to grow in greater knowledge of His Word and started sharing with other inmates in the prison. And from that day on, my insecurity, I was no longer insecure in my identity. I finally understood that I was a child of God, and that was huge. My identity became crystal clear. I started to, the loneliness began to leave me. The joy and peace in my life, uh, I was comfortable. I was comfortable within my skin for the first time. That in a simple thing, just having a relationship with God. And so uh, I got out of prison. Uh, I left prison with an 8th grade education. Uh, I believe Jesus gave me the strength to go to college and get a bachelor's degree in communication from the University of Nebraska. I met a lovely lady that was raised in a totally different environment than mine, and we got married. 8 years later, I was standing before the governor in the state of Nebraska, the full pardons board attorney general, because um, people had done articles on me about speaking, and the governor stood up and said, "With the powers invested in me, I declare a full pardon to you." All my sin, all my paper, all my crime, all the stuff was laid out on the governor's desk, and that governor stood up and said, "I'm cleaning the slate today." Well, an amazing day, but the greater amazing day was the day that I met Jesus for the first time.
And then talk a little bit, because you ended up flipping that and deciding you wanted to go back to the prisons.
Yeah, it was well, you get out of prison and you think, boy, I'm gonna stay away from this place. I'm never going back to that place. And I wasn't a bad person. I never got in any fights. I never hurt anybody. I would never have hurt anyone. I just didn't have that kind of heart in me. But I was sitting in my home, and I kept getting this thought: go back to the prison. And there was a man coming down into the prison and teaching a Bible study. And when I got out, he and his friend picked me up, and he gave me a job at his snack foods company, and he invited me to his church. And so I was growing there. This thought keeps coming to me: go back to prison. So I approached this man that was going in every week, driving an hour to the prison every week on Monday nights. And he said, "Well, let's go. Let me get a meeting with the warden." So we got a meeting with the warden. And again, just an amazing, only God could do. The warden leans forward and he says, "I've never done this since I've been a warden over the 25 years. But he says, I'm going to approve you to come back in with Mr. Peterson here into the prison weekly." And again, it's an amazing adventure with God. I never had adventure before. My adventure before was I'm lucky I'm sitting here alive. I should have been dead several times, and overdoses and stuff. And so here I was now going back into the prison, going to school, getting my degree, you know, received a full pardon from the governor, and then wow, it's just been an amazing journey. And then today I'm doing Life Relaunch, bringing people into a Life Relaunch experience, people that feel disconnected with themselves, people that are lonely, people that just are bored with this life, and and they're coming in and they're getting their heart restored, and they're walking out on an adventure with God.
And I think it's important because you spent, what, 20 years with Chuck Colson
Yeah, I spent 20 years
in the prisons,
Yeah.
going in and out. And then you and your wife started Daughters of Destiny, which is focused on women in prison. And it's so interesting to me because your new ministry is about helping the rest of us that don't even realize that we're in prison
Yeah.
get out of it.
Yeah. I've amazed at how many men. I've had 18-year-olds to 82-year-olds attend a 2-day Life Relaunch and walk away and get their heart restored. You know, life's a battlefield, and more importantly, life is a spiritual battlefield. We are more spiritual beings than we are physical beings, and so yeah, it's just amazing when a person will take time and invest in themselves. And all I can tell you, from the 18-year-olds to the 82-year-olds, they are running better. They are clearer. They see a purpose and meaningful purpose in life now. And they're on an adventure. The adventure has days of loneliness now and then. It has days of maybe a little depression. The battle is not without some temporal suffering. But with God, even in the suffering, is part of the adventure.
And do you mind kind of sharing? I mean, I've been through some things with my daughter and all of this because you mentioned this whole thing about the spirit
Yeah.
and the soul here. The process that you're taking people through is really unique.
Yeah, it's unique in this. As I mentioned, life's a battlefield. And from the time that you came out of your mother's womb, you have encountered in the unseen realm spiritual hits towards your heart, your spiritual heart, and your soul. Some of those attacks to your spiritual heart and soul and your identity and who you are have been spoken through others. Stuff that is not true about you as a little girl or boy or adolescent or teenager. Some of it you engaged in evil and brought it on yourself. And what's interesting is these soul injuries, they continue with you as you go through life. And at some point in your life, those have to be dealt with in order to walk in greater freedom. And that's what I've seen as people come through the 2-day. They're getting their hearts restored. And in many cases, it's from an incident where a father has abused his daughter. Or a young man has been a young boy has been abused by a family member or someone outside the family. And that wound to their heart, to their soul, is affecting them for a lifetime. I had an 82-year-old man come through Life Relaunch, and there was an incident in his life that happened at 9 years old, and he was still struggling with shame and guilt over that incident. But once his heart got restored, that incident, that core memory wound, it disappeared, and it has no longer control in his life.
And I think one of the things you said earlier is more.
More.
So many of us think, okay, we're okay.
Yeah.
We're doing all right. We're paying our bills. Our marriage isn't too far out there. Our kids are pretty well behaved. But God is a God that wants more.
Yeah.
And anything in our life that holds us back is not more.
Yeah. And so much of life is, yes, I have my life together. Yeah, I have resources. I have money. I'm doing this. I might not be doing it totally right, but the when the exposure is our pain. Whatever we went through forms our affects our identity. No matter how successful we are, we still have issues around our heart, and 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 a lot of people go through life and don't realize that those issues exist in their life and that they could be walking in greater freedom. And this is what I've seen. I've had CEOs, I've had businessmen, I've had pastors, I've had all kinds of young people, older people come through, and through the course of investing in themselves for 2 days, it was amazing what they were carrying through life. And when they unloaded that baggage, the freedom that occurred it's true freedom. I'm not talking about a retreat or something you go away and you go, oh yeah, I've been to those, and you got little warm fuzzies and they last for a day or so. No, I'm talking about people coming back to me and saying it's changed their life forever.
And I think it's also interesting. You're not just working with the CEOs and those, but prisoners.
Yeah, we've taken this to prisoners. We've taken it to rehabs. We all.
You're working with soldiers that are coming back with the PTSD and the baggage they're bringing back from
the
war.
PTSD, the veterans. Everybody has something. Life's a battlefield. You take hits, and those hits formulate your identity and who you are, and how you feel on the inside. And so it's just amazing that in a couple of days we can help a person identify what they can't even see often, and then experience greater freedom. I tell you, prisoners are walking in freedom today outside the prison. They're successful. They're living great lives. They have families. They're raising their kids in a whole different way than that they were raised. You got guys in rehab that come out of rehab. They're doing great. Some of them have started their own businesses. We have pastors that have come through that have turned around and said, you need a facility. They got their heart so restored. They just wanted to jump in, and they've sent their members to us that are struggling. So it's
And what I love about it is your heart. This is not yours.
no.
This is something that God gave you to give away.
Yeah. It's interesting. People will say to me, let me introduce you to the founder of Life Relaunch. And boy, I just perk up right away and go, whoa, no. Let me introduce you to the founder of Life Relaunch. His name is Jesus, and he's invited me to participate with him. I play a small place, and he's invited others to participate. But this is his. And so many people have been to church and, well, I'm not into that Christian thing, and I'm not into what this stuff over here, this religion. Well, Jesus didn't like the religious people either. This is when I started reading some scripture, I go, wow. In fact, when Jesus visited the little blue planet Earth, he spoke against the religious people, and he went to the common people. And so this is not a religious thing that I'm doing. This is not a churchy thing that I'm doing. This is an encounter with Jesus, with the Creator of the universe. An encounter to meet the true Jesus, and not what an institution has presented him to be.
And then it's exciting also because it's just like Jesus did. It's a movement.
Yeah,
It's not limited to where you are in Florida. I mean, this week you've been meeting with some pastors and some guys that are leading recovery centers in Arkansas, and going to put that in the recovery centers in Arkansas.
It's just amazing. It is a movement, and it's I've done no marketing. We haven't done any types of advertising. It's been all word of mouth. Word of mouth. Thousands of guys going through. We're now working on the women's side to help them get restored, because the guys have said, come back and says, my wife needs this. My girlfriend needs this bad, to help her. And so we're getting ready to roll out the women's life relaunch. And so it is a movement. It's I stand and I'm just in awe, because we have Life Relaunch going in Michigan and Virginia and Colorado, and it's expanding. And it's just some guys, or just say, I've been successful in life. I'm out here, but I'm bored. and what they're doing is they're finding a meaningful purpose with turning around and helping other people in their community.
Well, thank you for all that you've done all these years and just pursuing God.
Yeah.
And just saying, Jesus, what do you have for me next? And just being faithful through multiple ministries. That's one of the things that's always amazing to me. I get in my trenches of what I do, and then it's like, oh, but there's all these great opportunities out there for people just to say, hey, I don't really want to do that, but wait. I can get in someone's life. And
absolutely. We've had people go through Life Relaunch, and they'll say to me, well, I'll say, you need to come, because they're in a transition in their life. They need clarity. They're looking for something. They just don't know what it is. And they come, and Jesus gives them clarity. He has a plan for me. He had a plan for me. I'm walking with him. It's humbling. He has a plan for every person, and he's given them special gifts and talents. You know where my gifts and talents were? They were laying dormant. They were disabled by my insecurities and my problems. But when Jesus restored my heart and my passion, and said, look, I got a job for you to do. I got to tell you, when Jesus gives you a job, it's a great job. And so Jesus, I've talked with so many men, and they're doing life hard. Life is hard, and life runs better when you have a relationship with Jesus. Again, I'm not talking all the churchy stuff, all the Christian-y stuff. I'm just saying, this is a personal relationship. Imagine that, a personal relationship with the Creator of the universe.
Pretty impressive.
That's something to get excited about, my friend.
So if someone wants to find out where you're doing your events, your training, get involved, or they want to be trained up to train others, what's your website address again?
It's Life Relaunch. That's LIFE Relaunch, RELAUNCH.org. LifeRelaunch.org. And we would love to hear from people. We have people coming into the site all the time, wanting to just run better, just do life better.
Just get all they can from that great creator.
And get all they can, because he's downloading, and he has a plan for them. And if we can be a small part in a 2-day event, helping them discover that purpose more clearly, it's exciting. It's exciting.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey guys, so thankful you watched this video of Mel, my friend, the amazing guy who's all about the freedom Jesus Christ brings to us. I hope you're inspired and you get out there and you realize it doesn't matter what you've done, doesn't matter where you've been. God's got a plan for you and he wants to use you.